Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. On behalf of Bamrak Studios and the Getting to Really Know podcast, we're really saddened and troubled by what's going on in Gaza and Palestine. And we have been down for the last 2 weeks, so we decided to do something about it. Alhamdulillah, we were able to get 2 of our community members with families in Gaza to update us what's going on the ground, and also to give us guidance, how can we help and how can we contribute. So please keep the people of Gaza in your dua, and if you see this as beneficial, please share. Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam.
It's a pleasure and honor to have you with us today to talk about something really important, which is our brothers and sisters in Gaza and Palestine. And we reach out to all of you just because you have some ties back to Palestine somehow, and we wanted to just get the inside scope. So really, thank you for making time to be here with us. And, we can't wait to, get right into it. So first question right away. So tell us more about yourself, growing up, your family, and do you still have relatives in Palestine? We'll start with you, Rami.
Yeah, so I've been living in the Bay Area for about a little over 9 years now. I was born in Emirat and moved to Canada with my family when I was really young, 6 years old, and I grew up sort of there. My family's from Gaza, from North Gaza. My last name is Sultan, and our neighborhood is called As-Salatin. There's around 1,000 Salatin there. And it's near Beit Lahia, Jabalia area, so very close to the northern Gaza border. I've been there twice in my youth, primarily, in 93 and in 99, just before the second Intifada. And yeah, that's sort of like a small bio from my end.
Jazakumullah khair. Definitely want to know more about what's going on right now, but we'll just go around and then inshallah we'll come back to that, and definitely want to hear more. Yeah, go ahead, Muhammad.
I was I'm Palestinian, born in Kuwait, and I actually came to the United States as a refugee in 1990 during the Persian Gulf War. My family fled after living through about 2 months of the war and trying to ride it out. So you can imagine kind of historically from generations of my grandparents' parents, leaving Palestine, being displaced again into LA, and experiencing that from a young age, being able to have the ability to have shelter, food, basic necessities, and then losing that in the blink of an eye was very, formative for me, gave me a different viewpoint on life. I have family in Gaza currently, and as well as cousins and second cousins in the West Bank, and so we'll delve into more of that later, I'm sure. But that's kind of in a nutshell my background.
Okay, and what do you do now, Muhammad?
I'm an emergency room physician in the Bay, so I moved up here. Moved all around the United States for my training and so on, and returned back to the Bay and lived with my wife and 2 boys.
How about you, Rami?
I'm in high tech, and I'm married with 3 children. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Hisham?
My name is Hisham Abdel Fattah. My family Palestine name is Abu Isa. I'm half Palestinian. I was born here in the Bay Area. My Palestine family is from Haifa. My grandfather Uthman and his family, God rest his soul, was displaced in 1948. He had 6 brothers and sisters. My great-grandfather was blind, and they displaced our family and they walked to Syria. Where my family, my father and his 11 brothers and sisters were born. I was lucky enough to be born here, but I know I have extended family in Gaza, and I hear all the stories. I hear what's going on right now. I'm the oldest of all my cousins, so I was very close to my grandfather, and I heard all of the stories, everything he told me back in 1948 and what we went through. So, and how we lost our land. They were goat herders. They had a business.
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
And Hisham, what do you do?
Oh, I am the owner of a halal Mexican business called El Halal Amigos.
Yeah, the best restaurant in the Bay Area. Mashallah. Second question I have is, how are you guys feeling? And how are you doing? Obviously the community is broken. How are things in Palestine right now? Your families, are you in contact with them? And how are you holding up?
I'm happy to go first. So it's a heavy question. It's a heavy question for a number of reasons. Number one is because it's been a very difficult 2 weeks. Also because you feel guilty that's been so difficult for 2 weeks on talking about yourself and what you're going through. Because it's nothing compared to what's our family and our brothers and sisters and Gaza and Palestine as a whole are going through. And so, a little bit of it is survivor's guilt. And another part is like, are you doing enough? Have you done enough? Why haven't you done more before? Right? So it's important to understand that, like, especially this time, the level of violence and the level of brutality and inhumanity is unprecedented. There's been 5 major escalations in which Israel has pounded Gaza since 2008. And I keep thinking about children that were born in Gaza in 2008. This would be their 5th major war that they have to go through before they even hit the age of 60. They're still children. That level of trauma, that level of death, that plays through my mind. I remember hearing an anecdote from one of the spokespeople from the Israeli occupation speaking about the events of October 7th and how the Israeli community is a tight-knit community and that through 6 degrees of separation, someone knows someone that was impacted. And I thought to myself, in Gaza, the degrees of separation, number 1 is 0. And number 2, they don't know someone. They know entire families that have been just decimated. So that's very difficult. And then to have a personal connection, to listen to your uncles and aunts and cousins over the phone, to hear the airstrikes in the background of those phone calls, to wonder whether or not that's going to be the last time you speak with them. It is, it's very disturbing at times. I'm personally not someone who is very emotional publicly. I know that I was at work and just going through this and trying to process it. And in the middle of trying to go through my work, I started to tear up in front of my coworkers, speaking about work. And it's truly difficult. I've never done that before in my life, even through the other escalations, because it's been so unprecedented. My family has never had to leave their home and wonder whether or not they'll actually ever see it again, as they fled for their lives from the north of Gaza to the south. So yeah, personally, it's been very difficult.
SubhanAllah. Nothing to say, man.
Nothing to say. May Allah, obviously, give them the patience and give you the patience and everyone. I mean, it's like I don't even know what to say. I almost feel embarrassed to even say anything, right? Like I feel like this entire episode, I just want to look down, and it's because like a sense of guilt, a sense of like I'm ashamed that are we doing enough? Why weren't we doing anything prior to that? Like the points you mentioned. So thank you for sharing that, and I know it was a lot to share, but I think it's important. It's important that we're talking about these things, and we
like I relate to that moment at work. It's like, who cares if that thing doesn't work? Like I swear to God, like I'm like, oh, can we just make this better? I'm like, I don't really care if this chip doesn't work. Like I seriously don't care. We might not even be, like might not even be sane, by the time this project is done, or people might not be here, right, while I fix this bug, or so the mental state, and I don't have family there. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like I just like, I'm watching the videos, I'm reading, the articles, and it's like, man, I don't want to go to work. I don't want to do anything. I just want to work on this if I can, So May Allah reward you, man, and thank you for sharing that. And Allah only tests people that could weather the storm, and ask Allah that Allah makes you and your family strong, and to go through this and save them, and save everybody there, inshallah. Muhammad.
I think similar to what Rami said, I think you pause and reflect on the experience of the Palestinians over these decades, right? And I know we're focusing on the past couple of weeks because they're like the ultimate choke of an abuser, right? Abusing someone, trying to kill them, wipe them out. It's like they're just trying to squeeze that neck harder. That's what it feels like. But those hands around the neck have been there. And every time I've spoken with family there, you could hear the frustration. You could hear the feeling like, hey, no one's hearing our story. You think of like if you go to an elementary school class and there's bullies there, right? You find a kid that's trying to build something with Legos, and then this bully comes and knocks it down, right? Don't you dare tell the teacher. That's the bully. That's the occupier. And you can hear it in their voices in terms of their frustration with that bully. And the problem is, in this case, we had the other authorities, the other powers across the globe. They're enabling the bully to do what they're doing.
And in that analogy, that's like the teacher and the principal and the administrators
100%.
are patting the bully on the back.
Yep.
So how's that kid building the Lego supposed to feel?
And getting them
It's like, dude, what the heck?
steel-toed boots to kick the Legos.
Oh,
right?
man.
And in fact, kick the other kid. And so if we don't see it, and especially if you don't have folks on the ground that you have a family connection, right? I mean, I imagine like I ask my cousins, like, how do we get someone, just a fellow neighbor to feel your pain, to empathize with that pain? How do you do that? Only way is to reflect on an analogy that they've experienced or they've witnessed. I mean, frankly, they're witnessing it in real time right now. Instagram, Facebook. People are seeing videos of this annihilation of a people. And at some point, if the hearts don't get stirred up, well, then that's beyond any words that can come out of our mouths. My aunt, I mentioned this previously. My aunt, every time I would talk to her, right, she'd have her windows, new windows for her apartment. The jets fly over, blow them out, right? Just because of how low they're flying. If you were at Fleet Week, you kind of feel that power of the jets. Mm-hmm. They come down, blow out your windows. Well, if you don't have much money and you just had to raise that money, and 75% plus unemployment among young folks, how are you going to do that? 3 to 5 hours of electricity. Well, all the food that I just bought and put in the fridge, that's gone to waste, right? And so that internal frustration.
And it's not like there's a store that they could go buy from every day. Food comes in like very scarce.
Right.
Like
because the bully controls the borders. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The occupier controls the water. I mean, you pause and think, like, how can an entity that is defending itself have control over water going in, right? Food going in. Like, you got to pause and think, like, that's not a defense mode, right? That's an occupier that's just accumulating more power to bully and in effect, in a calculated way, cleanse the area of these people and dehumanize these people. But one thing that I always get from my conversations with my family there is that resilience, right? Companies, we're in the Valley. We pay tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars to get our teams resiliency training. And I say, take your teams and go to Gaza, go to the West Bank. And you will see resiliency. You get kicked down, you bounce right back up, and you bounce higher. And that is what's going to get justice to prevail. It's the people there and us supporting them and us doing our part. And you don't need family to feel their pain, because it's a human pain.
Yeah.
Seeing a child, I mentioned this over the news the other day, when a child comes in dead to the ER or dying, it is one of the most painful things we can see. We see death every day. I see people dying all the time. When a kid comes in and there's this automatic feeling like, I got to do everything 100%, 110%. And if you realize over time that when it's time for someone to go, it's time for them to go. It doesn't matter what you do. If we don't feel that pain, that human experience, then you check your pulse, you don't have a pulse. You don't have that humanity, that pulse of humanity circulating in your body. And so I know that may be a long-winded answer to your question, but that's what you get when you talk to my family in Gaza.
That's going to be really hard to follow.
I mean, it's not. It's
No, that is, out of respect, that is just,
Yeah.
I can't. Like, that is just really, really eloquently said and beautifully said. Everything that we're feeling into both of you, your words. Both of you, your words is so eloquently put. It's like Rami and Muhammad, you guys took all of my family's thoughts and feelings and put it out there right now in the most unbelievably respectful manner I've ever heard. And from everything that I have been watching, from a social media standpoint, from the Al Jazeera standpoint, I would have listened to what both of you just said 1,000 times. And I truly hope, inshallah, that people feel what you just said the way I just felt it. All I have is the perspective of my father here, my family here, his brothers and sisters here, alhamdulillah, and the pain that we feel and the mute that we feel from being a business owner. People know me as this happy-go-lucky guy, jumping in front of the social media standpoint, because that's how we got our business started. For close to 2 weeks now, I am pulling myself off like a cement out of bed to go and continue for the people who work for me. They're my only motivation at this point. As you know, I didn't even want to come and do this. But if it was for Palestine, for sure, and I think a lot of us are feeling, what can we do? What can we do? We're seeing it. We're watching social media. We're seeing the children dying in front of us. People who don't have the experience to be in the ER room are watching, at my age, in my perspective, children dying on video without censorship.
En masse.
Yeah, getting killed. And a lot of the people who work for me who are not Palestinian or even Muslim, what can we do? A lot of people are feeling like that. Well, we can pray, dua. We can give back somehow through certain organizations. So hopefully, inshallah, the money reaches them.
which we don't know. Like, that's the part that scares me too. It's like, I mean, I'm gonna give it anyways. I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah.
I will take the chance. But like, the reality is that, maybe it might not get there, right? That's another, reality that we live in.
The choke you spoke about, we're feeling it in the day-to-day society as Palestinians trying to survive here. We're being muted. The media is sending off messages that is absolutely despicable about our people and who we are and what we stand for. And the protests we're seeing throughout the nation, they're calling it a terrorist group, or that we're supporting some kind of terror. That's what really hit me. And because we have been protesting for the past 75 years, and to call us that right now, in the worst moment I've seen in my lifetime of fighting, out of the 5 wars you spoke about, this is the worst I've ever seen it. And I my fear is not comparable at all to what people are feeling in Gaza, but my fear is for all of us, and how discriminating and strong the oppressor is. Wow, like I can't even believe that we are choked the way we are, and people actually follow it. You know, it's unbelievable.
It's like humanity is gone.
It's gone.
It's like we're not human anymore.
Well, I think that's the intent of the occupied. That's the intent of those in power, is to get you to the point where you fear so much that you get paralyzed, that you stop doing what you're doing, that you isolate, right? Because when you isolate, then people don't get a chance to know you, don't get a chance to frequent your restaurant, or come talk to you as your neighbor, right? And that's when you have to be steadfast. That's how you have to stand your ground.
Yes.
Right? And do what you got to do, because that's the sunnah of the Prophet. He didn't go isolate. He stood his ground. The Sahaba stood their ground. People knew them, right? And that is going to carry a lot further than just tidbits that people hear on the news, right?
Yep.
If people want to hear, they want to know, they're going to know, right? And sometimes you look at this, the propaganda machine, and you feel like, oh my gosh, this rogue wave coming at me at the beach, right? And it's going to knock me down, right? You have to know how to ride that wave. How are you going to ride that wave? The wave is not going to go away.
Yeah.
It's not going away. And in fact, we see these waves all the time in different forms, Islamophobia. And that's just relevant to Muslims directly, but hey, how about our black brothers and sisters who have endured so much over centuries in this country? And that's what goes back to, as Muslims, we stand up for justice regardless. If it's Palestine, if it's here domestically, people are unhoused, we support justice for them. We have to have a stance on these things, because it can't just be when it's relevant to us. Right now it's highlighted because the Palestinian struggle has been ongoing for as long as it has, and it's representative of a lot of injustice around the world. But you got to pause and think, who's benefiting from the divide and conquer, right? When Jewish colleagues, come to me and they say, hey, I'm afraid about anti-Semitism because of this, right? We got to pause and say, I got your back. You understand what justice is. You stand for what's right? And being able to understand that nuance, just because somebody's Jewish doesn't mean they're Zionist, right? Yeah. So we have to be like, as Muslims, if a Muslim is listening to this podcast, we have to be a little more nuanced and stand for justice regardless. Right. Don't paint every population the same, because that's the method that is being used, against us right now.
Actually, subhanAllah, you mentioned this in Surah Hud talks about this, and Surah Hud came down at the height of basically like the torture and what's happening in Mecca, and one of the orders is don't transgress. Like, keep going, right? You can't stop, don't let down, don't shake hands with the enemy, and don't transgress. Just because they're doing wrong, that doesn't give you the right to do wrong or to be like them. And
yep.
It's really powerful, subhanAllah.
So despite everything that's happening and as aching as it is, there's got to be a wisdom, right? We believe, and I forgot who said this, but it's like, no matter how high their warplanes fly, God's above them, right? So we know there's a wisdom here. 75 years, 150 years, another year, 2 years, Allahu Alam. And you were alluding to this earlier. You said they're so resilient, and Allah wouldn't test them. Like, Allah wouldn't burden a soul more than it can bear. That's an ayah, right? And they're being tested, but there's a wisdom. Let's only Allah knows, but let's just talk about that. Why is this happening to the best of our human understanding? Like, what is it? What is it? What's the wisdom?
So that's
it's not for nothing. They're not just, it can't be, because Allah is the most just. Yep. And eventually it will show.
100%. So I was asking the exact same question, right? And at first, and what I where my mind took me is to like go back into the history. Have we been here before? Is this unprecedented? And the reality of the situation, if you know your history, we actually have been here before. Not 10 years ago or 50 years ago or 100 years ago. During the time of the Crusades, right? And you would think, where's the Crusades and where are we here? Like, how can you find the connection? First of all, the Crusades, when they were launched, there was actually peace in that region, in Jerusalem, in Blad al-Sham, in the entire Mediterranean area. There was actually peace. Christian pilgrims would be allowed free passage to come in and to leave Muslim lands through the entire empire and without any harassment. Jews lived in Jerusalem, were able to live, do whatever they want. When the Crusades came, they came not to sort of free an oppressed people, their oppressed people, Christians, because they, by any measure, by any Christian scholar would tell you that they were absolutely not oppressed. But they came in specifically for a political agenda, for domination. And they succeeded. For 200 years, they succeeded. And so I think to myself, here we're 75 years that we're going through occupation. There was an occupation of 200 years. And if you don't understand your Islamic history, you'd think that you'd have a very simplistic view in terms of like, we have an ummah, they were all unified throughout all of history. We had one Khalifa, and then at some point in history, we began to decline. And that's absolutely not the case. We've gone through ebbs and flows in terms of how united our ummah has been. And during the time of the Crusades, when it began, Muslims were absolutely not united. They were actually divided. They were in Muslim city-states that were warring against each other for power. Brothers, one in Halab, in Aleppo, one in a leader of Damascus, in Damascus. And they would raise armies and hire assassins and try to kill each other. We had a figurehead of a Khalifa in Baghdad. You had a completely different Khalifa in Egypt. So it was more or less chaos. Nobody trusted one another. Even when they tried to fight the invading Crusade army, they would actually say that they're going to unite, and as soon as they come to the battlefield, one army would then turn back and leave the other army to be destroyed. We've been here before. We're literally repeating history.
It's probably worse than now, in a way. Honestly, it is, yeah.
Honestly, and what that tells me is there was a hope. People talk about Salah ad-Din Ayyubi, and I apologize for being long-winded, and they think that Salah ad-Din Ayyubi came, and he is someone who is special and dear, not just to Muslims, but to Christians, because of how he carried himself and how merciful he was. But people, especially within our community, romanticize him to the point of like, he was a saint, or he was someone that could do no wrong, and he was someone that sort of grew up with having the most amazing amount of it. No, he was in his youth was like any other youth, and he grew up within that environment. And things happened before even his birth in order to put him in the situation where he could go and free the people of Al-Quds and unite the Muslims. And that is people turning back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. At the time of the Crusades, there were scholars, there were people who had high iman, who saw the situation, the desperate situation of the Muslim ummah, and decided, we need to do something. We need to do something even if it's small, and ask Allah to accept it and bless it, so that we can bring peace and justice to this land. And what they decided to do is just small Islamic education centers that spread all over the Middle East. Doing what? Telling people to turn back to Allah. To remember at a time when everyone was looking to be insular, everyone was looking to take care of their own affairs, their own wealth, their own people within their own city walls, to be known. This is an ummah. You must care about everyone. You must take care of the poor. You must stand up for justice, regardless of the cost. And so these small Islamic educational centers that promoted justice. This is what Salah ad-Din Ayyubi grew up through. Nobody of those scholars and those believers thought when they were starting these that this is going to be something that would eventually, automatically change the situation in Al-Quds and remove the oppression that's there. Nobody even dreamed of that. But they said the only thing I can do is this small thing, and I ask Allah to accept it sincerely. And that's the beautiful thing of Allah, about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You actually don't need to do much. You just have to do something purely, sincerely for His sake, and ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless it, and then watch what happens. Because it's not something that you're doing, it's something that He's doing. Yeah. He subhanahu wa ta'ala is taking it and will bless it and will help the Muslims, inshallah, come back to establish what? Not vengeance, but to establish justice and peace in the land. And even when Salah ad-Din Ayyubi was able to reunite the Muslims and open Al-Quds, we know what happened. There wasn't a massacre like when the Crusades came in to Jerusalem. And the pilgrims continued to be allowed passage even after that time. And so that gives me hope that, inshallah, we are seeing, every time we see the brutality of the occupied forces, it's not a sign of strength. It's actually a sign of weakness.
Yeah.
Right? And this is what I'm seeing, and this is the hope that I'm getting. And I apologize, I'll end with this. There's an ayah in the Quran that talks about تَحْسَبُهُمْ جَمِيعًا وَقُلُوبُهُمْ شَتَّى, Surah Al-Hashr. And right now you're hearing that, like, when you think about the world uniting and giving the green light to the occupied forces to come in and do the atrocities that they're currently doing. When you look at our own United States government, we're hearing now, previously you'd hear rumors of, like, some people oppose what's happening in Palestine from the previous wars. Now we're hearing open discontent within the U.S. State Department. Josh Paul, a senior director in the State Department, resigned. 11 years in the State Department, resigned, and said it's because of this. He said, when we signed with the Biden administration an agreement that if we're going to send weapons to any country, irrespective, that we must apply the Leahy Convention, which is a convention that says if these weapons are going to, more probably than not, be used for human rights atrocities or violations, that we will absolutely not do it. And he said, when the situation happened and they were talking about the State Department, like, what should we do? No one started to argue the fact that, like, if we give the occupied forces these armaments, that they're going to use them against Palestinian population and kill thousands of civilians. And so he's the one who's speaking up. You'd never hear about this before. No one would ever quit their job over this. The fact that just recently we heard 400 staffers from Washington, D.C., signing a letter calling for a ceasefire now. Seeing our Jewish brothers and sisters from the amazing organization of Jewish Voices for Peace protesting harder than we're protesting to call for an end to the violence and for the end to the occupation. That gives me hope, inshallah.
What's the craziest or most inspiring story that you have, seen or heard that really, give you hope?
Again, I just have the perspective of being here in the Bay Area and operating my businesses as the leader of a team. Watching everything that's happening on social media, mostly the children, seeing the children every single day, they're putting it out in front. I watch Craving Palestine. I don't know if you follow that on Instagram. And there's no censor. But the biggest challenge that I was faced with is whether to speak out. Again, Muhammad, you said something that really hit me, is that this is when we should be the loudest. And I was on the fence because my business is within the Willow Glen community, the Los Gatos community, and it's predominantly Caucasian. It's a good community. I have nothing bad to say about it. I've got nothing but support, but I knew what I was facing, and there was several people, maybe more than several, I'd say at least 30 to 40 people who had reached out to me personally through social media platform and asked me, oh, okay, Hisham, well, what are we going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And
is it in a positive way, or
in a
like
positive way, more so like,
okay,
what can we do? There was a few that were pretty angry, and they just needed somebody to jump out, and I think what they really wanted was they wanted to help, but they just didn't know how. I'll be completely honest with you. With the fight that we had over the years to start the business and get it to a platform that we wanted to get to so we can survive, and there was some fear with me that I think that a lot of people feel, but there was this I remember this one video I watched one night, late night, and I watched children crying, and we see it over and over again, and I went to bed, and never in my life, in the 6 years I've been with my wife, she never seen me talk in my sleep or anything like that. I had the worst nightmare I could ever imagine. I was screaming. And I don't remember the screaming because I was asleep, but I remember the nightmare. And she woke me up, and she's like, "Oh my God, are you okay? What's going on? You're in a fight." And I was swearing, screaming. My immediate thought was, this isn't the nightmare. This was just not even a glimpse of what is happening, And at that very moment, I knew I had to do something. I came out the very next day. I said, screw this. I'm using the platform that we have. We partnered with Lisa, with Murchies, Bay Area Halal Foodies. I got on the horn right away with Halal Fest. And we combined an effort, and I'm just gonna say, inshallah, whatever money we raise, I'm gonna use the foundations I've used before, people I trust within Islamic Relief USA, UNRWA, PCRF, and we're gonna give 50% of our profits on a particular day to the organizations to hopefully, inshallah, get to the people. If inshallah now. But I'm going to give it to them so they can get it soon, inshallah, but whenever. I just get it there. And so that was what really sparked me. Of course, there's, stories there is real, the truth about the bombings of the hospital and now a church. But that is just one thing I really wanted to share with you guys, because the hesitation, and then something hit me that night, and I just went with it. And I don't know. I don't want to call it. Maybe the dream was sent from something. I don't know. But I'm born here, and I had that nightmare. I had was wallahi, I swear I was there. And if even for a moment. But my immediate thought was, this is nothing. That was nothing. That was a drop, a pin drop.
Because you got to wake up in your bedroom.
Oh, I woke up in my bedroom.
In Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
So how?
But I jumped up, and I got to do something, And I just really wanted to share that.
Yeah. So let me ask a follow-up question about. So you all know the importance of social media and how powerful it is. A video you saw literally potentially triggered a nightmare, et cetera, got you to do something. So that being said, there's so much footage and raw material coming to us via social media, family and friends, et cetera, and we're seeing it, and we can't fully comprehend it, but we're believing it because we're seeing it. Mm-hmm. That being said, on the opposite end of the spectrum, you have major media outlets coming up with the most ridiculous segments on things. Look, I'm not a politician, I'm not a historian, I might not even have the highest IQ, but just listening to what they're saying, I'm like, how is anyone believing this BS, right? But somehow it's working to a degree. It's working, right? So not on everyone, you mentioned the senior director that resigned. So not everyone, but it is working. And I'm like, for the first time in forever, it hit me, and maybe now I'm a little older and I'm kind of understanding things. I'm like, this isn't just a war on the ground. it's not even a war, it's an occupation, but that's not the point. It's a media, a PR, a propaganda war, like globally. It's like who can get people's attention and buy-in the quickest, the most creatively, the most whatever, right? So what are your thoughts on it being truly like a media war, and what do we do and where do we take it and how do we actually, we don't have billions of dollars in funding, in media funding. So what do we do and how do we approach it?
This is absolutely a huge media war. The youth, right? Everything from 12 years old all the way till my age, 37. The first thing that we do and the quickest way we get our information is through social media. And everybody has an opinion these days. Everyone wants to jump out there and join something. It is unbelievable how much we are being ridiculed and stomped on by the oppressing, and they're using I'm hearing stories. They're literally telling people to get out there and shut us down on media. Whatever we say or we post or in support to Gaza or to what's happening, they are jumping on and shutting us down as much as they can. And I know some people within the news stations, the media. The oppressing is literally sending money here and telling them, giving them stories and paying them. Even influencers here say this, do that, put it out there.
Like cash here.
Yeah, they're giving the money.
Here, take cash.
This.
Just say this.
Just say this. Here's the story that we have. Put it out there. Everyone push it. They're putting millions of dollars behind it. They're fighting us everywhere in every way possible because, like you said, they're scared.
I believe they're scared. They say, tough times make strong people make good times create weak people. I really believe Banu Israel, just the Zionist agenda, they were strong at some point, right? Because they came from tough situation, right? And I think now they're weak, right? Because the good times passed and created weak people, which it's our turn. And there's one of the sunnahs of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's this dual, right? Good and bad, they switch off. And it's our turn, man. We're in tough time. We're creating some solid people. Like you said, some of those kids in Palestine, they've been through 5 wars. If you survive 5 wars, can you tell me, what's death? Mm-hmm. What is that? I'm not even supposed to be here. I'm supposed to be gone 5 times. And that's fearlessness, and that's what's gonna take to create good times. And I think we're and they know that and they see that, and it's very scary. And that's why I'm with you. I have a lot of hope. And I think the wisdom behind this is to wake us up, is to create that group of people that are going to be fearless. And again, we're not trying to go out there and take people out. We're not trying to go out there and be something we're not. We are, like you said, our foundation is justice. This whole faith is about justice, and that's what we want to do. We want, if Palestine, if it's fair. Why Jews can live there? There's we have no issue. Dude, please worship Allah. You worship Allah. If you're worshiping God, go ahead. Everybody's welcome to worship whatever they want. As long as everybody's fair, everybody's getting their share. But alhamdulillah, man, I think it might be us, it might be the next generation, it might be the one after. We have to play the patient game, but we have to do our part, inshallah.
Yeah, we'll talk about the kids and the resilience and the hope. And after the break, I want to get just final comments about the whole media war and what we can do. I know you said they're paying influencers. So if you are an influencer and don't sell yourself, don't sell your soul, no matter how much cash they offer you, that's an obvious one. And I think most people have a level of dignity to understand that. But what else can we do in this whole media war thing?
I think you have to understand the psychology behind media. First of all, it's a for-profit industry, right? Mm-hmm. Ultimately, it's a dollars game. You're not going to win that battle, right? And the the experience of media and news headlines. You'll log into all these networks, they'll have the same headlines, right? It's reinforcing a message. The more you hear the same message, the more it becomes a truth in your mind as a common kind of layperson just watching the evening news. With that being said, what we do have access to is our neighborhoods, our local involvement, just being vocal. If you have a business, coming out and saying, hey, I don't stand up for this. People know Hisham is a solid guy. He's honest. He's a good guy. And hold on, what is he saying? He's telling me I should stop and feel the humanity of the people who are oppressed. I don't think that's a bad thing. And so you start tuning out the billions of dollar industry and tuning in with those who are talking to you on a day-to-day basis, right? And so I think that's really the channel that we have to focus on. Because like we were talking about earlier, it's this wave, this rogue wave that comes at us like, dude, some people can barely pay their bills every month. Like, how do I fight this machine? And you fight it with what you have access to, which is your ability to connect with the people around you. And when enough people do that, then that current starts building up and you overcome that wave. I think that's really our only hope and our only approach.
Yeah. Yeah. Any thoughts on that point, Rami?
Yeah, just I'll try to be brief here. Going on after what Hisham said, we know now, and we knew before, and we kept on saying it, and people weren't hearing us, but now there's been many different experiments, and it's been proven that Facebook, who owns Instagram, the different social media companies, that they are calibrating their algorithm to suppress a lot of the things that are coming out of Palestinian, speaking for Palestinian human rights, speaking for ceasefire, speaking for justice, and amplifying the other side, the narrative of the other side, which is pro-war, which is equating all Palestinians more or less to a terrorist organization or supporting a terrorist organization. And so therefore their lives aren't worth as much as Israeli lives. We know this to be true. And when you see that, an American company, many of these are American companies, many of these CEOs that are coming out and saying immediately, we stand with Israel, knowing exactly what's going to happen the next minute, which is a carpet bombing of an entire population that has no refuge, unable to escape, that was already which the UN described as unlivable in 2018, which has 95% of the population did not have access to clean water as defined by the UN in terms of standards, international standards. 65% of the population lived with food insecurity. Mohammed was saying less than 6 to 12 hours of electricity per day. These are crazy statistics that, like, before what happened 2 weeks ago, not because of, before. So you're going from a humanitarian crisis ongoing to now a humanitarian disaster when you completely cut off food, water, electricity, medical aid to the entire population. And so what that tells you is, again, I go to the point that they're afraid. And you asked about, what is it that we could do? We're sort of up against billions of dollars of propaganda that's coming out from the Israeli government. They have literally units and units and units of trained people in media from their military. This is their only job, is to do this, to bombard the population of their propaganda time and time and time again. You hear about the Palestinian flag being, first of all, within Israel, it was illegal to carry the Israeli flag. Now in Europe, in Germany, in France, it's illegal to protest for a ceasefire. It's illegal to protest for human rights and to end the killing that you can get jailed for. It's come to a point where they are afraid. They're afraid. They're afraid of the youth who don't get their cues and they don't get their media from traditional media outlets. They're on the ground. They're the ones on TikTok. They're doing more work than you and I and everyone in between. These are the generations that are way more savvy than we'll ever be in terms of media.
And the statistics show that the 80% are in support of Palestinian.
100%.
Yeah.
And to think that the government of Israel has the fourth most powerful military army in the world, that has the seat of high tech outside of Silicon Valley, that they're afraid of like 13-year-olds, 12-year-olds, 15-year-olds, because they see the truth and they are relentless. They see how relentless the bombing campaign is in Gaza and the occupation is in Gaza and in Palestine, and they are doubling down. They're not afraid. They're not afraid. They'll lose sleep. They'll stay up. They'll post and repost, and they won't stop because they see the injustice for what it is, and no one else could. The Israeli military is more afraid of those kids than they are of any Arab government, of any Muslim government.
And we're still winning. And we haven't spent $1. They spent $1 billion. And the narrative is changing for us in our. I mean, we haven't spent any money. Really, how much money have we spent on it? So they're spending billions, as you said, billions of dollars on this. They're not losing sleep on it. And from what I see, we're winning. And because it's real, it's truth, and people are smart. At the end of the day, they can separate. You know.
You could keep hiding the sun, but it's there.
Exactly. Exactly.
Eventually, people they can see it's right there. No, things are changing, inshallah.
So we would love to hear from you, like anything you've seen, or heard in the last couple of weeks that inspired you or gave you hope, from Gaza.
Actually this morning after Fajr, I watched this video. A few days back, there was a young boy, he's probably around maybe 4 years old, who was pulled out of the rubble after the building he was in was bombed, lost his family members. And I remember seeing the video of him. He was trembling on this hospital gurney, just covered in dust, blood, and he was just dazed, looking into the distance, shaking. And I was thinking how traumatizing that is. That's just like the amount of psychological trauma that kid endured in that moment. I couldn't fathom. So this morning I saw a follow-up video of him. And subhanAllah, such a beautiful smile. He was smiling, and he was the guy behind the camera was asking him, what do you want to tell the people who are asking about you? Did you know, he was telling them, did you know millions of people in the world love you and we're asking about you, how you're doing? And he was saying, I tell them, thank you. I thank them for caring about me. And subhanAllah, I was just thinking like, man, like if that is not that resilience of this next generation that's going to hold the banner of justice, hold true to the Palestinian heritage, I don't know what is. I mean, I a few days ago, I was thinking there's no turning back for this kid. Like this would have destroyed him. If not physically, it destroyed him mentally. But subhanAllah, bounce right back up. And not only that, have gratitude. That's one thing that you'll see time and again in these videos is that, the folks on the ground who are being oppressed, they say, Alhamdulillah. They're grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving them another day, for giving them whatever basic things that they have access to. So that was the most inspiring thing for me in the past couple of weeks.
That's amazing, man. SubhanAllah, it got me teared up a little bit.
For me, we talked about resilience. We talked about a population in which, the top and the flow of water and food and electricity is controlled by the occupation forces and all the wars that they've had to endure. And you would think that a people that go through that sort of level of trauma that they, in which they don't have access to, tens of thousands of therapists to treat them for that level of trauma, which is unlike anywhere in the world. The reality of the situation is that as a people, they are their own therapists. Their community is a community of therapy. And that what people need to understand is that the people of Gaza, the people of the West Bank, the people of Palestine are the salt of the earth type people. They themselves comfort one another. They themselves look out for one another. They themselves help and aid and assist because there's no one else for them to lean on. It's literally a matter of survival. And so when they say, to exist is to resist. Just by living with dignity is to resist the occupation. And this is something that I find difficult. I didn't grow up in Gaza. I still find difficult to process in my mind because if one member of my family was killed in an airstrike, I don't know what I would do from a psychological perspective in terms of how much that would damage me in a very dark way. They go through families. Their families are being murdered. Not one, not two, entire families. And so that's a level of resilience that's unbelievable. It means that these people are a special type of people. And this is what gives me hope. I was speaking to my cousin, my first cousin from my uncle. They live in the north of Gaza, as I mentioned before. And when they were threatened to flee from their homes or else they would be killed, you have to understand that when you're doing that to 1.1 million people who already are living through a humanitarian crisis, and to tell them to do that in the middle of a war zone with no fuel, no food, it's just insanity. It's the outcome of that. The United Nations had to say that this will be a humanitarian catastrophe. It doesn't matter what the UN says. Israel ignores what they say, and they say this is what we're going to do, and tough luck. And the world obviously greenlights it. They packed my elderly uncles and aunts, whoever couldn't walk, into as many vehicles as they can, and they headed south because they were told it was going to be safe. My cousins would gather whatever belongings that they could, their children, many of whom are young. One of my cousins, 6 months pregnant, with little kids. And they walked 20 miles south through a war zone. It's not 20 miles south down St. Thomas Expressway, through a war zone, along with a million other people trying to flee for their lives.
Yeah, and they're walking, you said.
And they're walking. And they don't, it's not like you walk for an hour.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I have kids. And I went to Mariposa Grove and we had to walk, we had to hike for a long time. And you see how much they complain, right? I'm tired, it's tough, it's difficult. Imagine taking care of 30 kids who were with them, in which they had to take turns lifting them on their shoulders and walking, not for an hour, not for two, for 6 to 8 hours. It was a whole day. It was a whole day of them doing this trek.
And by the end of that walk, it's not like there's 100% certainty that they're good, right? It's still like a uncertain element, right? It's like, whoa, are we?
They don't even know where they're going.
Yeah, exactly.
100%.
Yeah.
So it's not, and there's there'll be humanitarian aid there, and there'll be water there, and there'll be food. There's populations in the hundreds of thousands living in the areas that they're evacuating to. So now you're overpopulating an area in which there's no guarantees. And so when we were speaking to him on the phone, he was recounting to us, there's no food, there's no water. We're taking shelter in a UN school. We're so large of a family, we had to split up. My aunts and uncles who have diabetes or other ailments couldn't be in the school because imagine, they were telling us, 40 people in one classroom, not just 40 people in a classroom sitting. They have whatever their mattresses, they're trying to, and these classrooms are tiny classrooms. Said there isn't even enough mattresses for everyone to sleep on. We take turns. One person sleeps on the ground and the other person sleeps on a mattress that's just there. There's no food. There's no water. My cousin went to the market and he's saying 200 meters away, there was an airstrike. 5 minutes earlier, he would have been gone. And he says they're hitting the marketplaces. They just destroyed the only bakery, the only large-scale bakery in Gaza, they destroyed. This level of collective punishment is insane. But to go to your point in terms of inspiration, the inspiration is when I hear from him his desperate cries for trying to figure out how to feed and how to find water for the people that are in his care, including up to 30 children. That till now, they're still going around and helping other people. And this goes back to what I was saying about Palestinians being the most resilient people on the face of this earth. And that
they're not even thinking about themselves.
No.
Not whatsoever.
No, you can't. They know that they're all in this together. They know that they've been living this together for 75 years. And they know now that if they don't take care of one another, literally the occupation forces would have won. Because the only objective is to break the Palestinian people. It's to break that resilience. 75 years they haven't been able to do that. So they think if we just absolutely destroy neighborhood after neighborhood after neighborhood, make people flee their homes, give them fear that they'll never come back home, and that is looking like now maybe a reality, that they'll never be able to come back to their homes, that maybe finally now that we will break them, and they'll just give up. But they don't. And the reason they don't is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blesses them with resilience. And this is, I have nothing to teach the people of Gaza and the people of the West Bank. The only thing I can do is learn from them. They can teach the entire world anything about humanity, perseverance, resistance, caring for one another.
Dignity and honor.
Absolutely.
There was this video I saw of two boys. I think they might have been brothers or relatives, and maybe you guys saw this video. But they were young boys, kids. One of them was like done, khalas, was hospital, wrapped up, like the kid was dying. The other kid is a couple years older. They could have been like 5 and 8 or maybe 7 and 10, I don't know, but young boys. That older kid, who could have been like his brother or relative or something, was telling him, and I'm paraphrasing because it's been a while and I didn't go back to the video, because he was telling him, hey, say the shahada. Ashhadu. You saw that video? He's telling him, bro, he's boys. He's like, ashhadu, and he's helping him. And the guy's like dying. He goes, ashhadu. He goes, "Halli sotak, ya zalama." He's like, raise your voice. Say it louder.
SubhanAllah, man.
And this is a boy, man, telling another boy who's dying to say the shahada. I saw this video and I was like, this, however old he is, this 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old boy is more of a man than I'll ever be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Than I'll ever be.
Absolutely.
And I was just like, dude, I'm literally nothing. I can't do this. I put my phone down. I was like,
does anyone remember COVID when we first started hearing about the shutdowns, and everybody, including myself, ran to the supermarkets. And I'm just there's nothing on the shelf, and I'm trying to put as many things inside my shopping basket and everything. And I'm going, and everyone is everywhere, and it's insanity. And you're hearing like music playing, which is like surreal. I felt like I was out of a movie. And this is when we're tested. This is what people here do when they have fear. But when they have fear, they don't react like that. When they have fear, they approach it with a level of dignity and honor that you don't find anywhere on this earth.
It's the epitome of community, right? Because we're used to, in this day and age, that individualism. It's all about me and my family. Let me rush, go get the last bathroom tissue rolls, right? What about my neighbor, right? And there are examples of what a true community is. Oh, you lost a family member. Well, I'm still here. You're my family, right? They're all one big family. In
They're not thinking tomorrow. It's
No,
like now.
exactly.
I have enough food to feed all of us now. That's what we'll do right now.
And you know what I've been constantly reminded of is, you know, the Prophet ﷺ tells us, if you see the end in front of you, day of judgment, and you have a seedling, plant the seed.
Yeah.
Plant the seedling. That's what they're doing. Those are the examples in my mind. And subhanAllah, it's like what Rami's saying, we have so much to learn. And that's why the authentic leadership, the guiding light is going to come from there.
Absolutely.
And that's why we can't lose hope. That's why 10, 20, 30 years from now, inshallah, that generation, very talented, very actually intelligent. You talk to people from Palestine, they're not like simplistic in their thinking. They're very intelligent, and you have this capacity to tap into that drive, that passion, and you give them something. You uplift them with knowledge and experience, and they're going to revolutionize the earth, to improve the earth and the world. And so that's what I'm excited about. I'm excited about, inshallah, when oppression leaves that area, it's going to be it's going to bloom into something beautiful. It's like a wildfire that takes out a mountainside. And then the next spring comes and you see those beautiful little seedlings come up and those flowers, and it gives you that joy that it's not, it's not all, all that's lost is not for nothing.
Muhammad talked about 70% unemployment youth rate, right? In Gaza in 2018, that's why it was deemed by the UN to be an unlivable place. So you think to yourself, 70% youth unemployment, is it because they're not educated? Is it because, people of Gaza don't care about getting any sort of education, or maybe they only care about getting food, money? What? No, their levels of education are extremely high. It's not 70% unemployment because they don't have any education. It's 70% unemployment because there's zero opportunities. There are universities in Gaza. There are women that are graduating some points more than men in certain fields out of university. Even though, and this is the resilience, even though they know that there'll most likely be zero to no opportunities. They could be doing anything else. But because,
and working on 4 hours of electricity every day.
There's organizations that have sprung up to try to uplift small organizations, but doing amazing work in the high-tech industry, because that's where I work. Gaza Sky Geeks and Manara Tech, who look to, because computer science, when you're learning computer science, right? When I went to university, there was labs. I could buy my own computer. I can code. They don't have laptops and computers and MacBooks. They literally are solving computer science equations on pieces of paper. And so these organizations like Manara Tech and Gaza Sky Geeks take Palestinian graduates. They have to be graduates. And at times 50% of them are women enrolled in these programs. And they partner with companies like Google and other startups to employ them remotely. They mentor them and they set them up for interviews with these high-tech organizations, and they end up hiring them. And they have like an amazing hiring rate. And sometimes they stay within Gaza, and sometimes they go outside of Gaza to go work for these companies. That's amazing. That's so uplifting. Like Muhammad was saying, like literally they're just waiting for their opportunity to just burst and show the world what they're made out of. But they're being robbed from these opportunities by the occupation.
That's the video that touched me the most in the last few days was this man. They uncovered like a body that's been under the rubble for a few days, and he said, "Wallahi, I've never smelled musk before." And he opens it and he pulls out the hand, and it's like it's soft, still warm. And and he kisses it, and he says, "Wallahi na'iman laka shahada." Like this is what shahada is like. And I saw that, I was like, Subhanallah, man. They're living. They're not dead. Subhanallah, these people are living. And the other story of this, one night I was trying to go to sleep, and it hit me that people in Gaza can't go to sleep because it's just these bombs are dropping all the time. These children, like, as a dad, what do I tell my children? Like, like, you're gonna be okay. I can't tell him that because he might not be okay. Like 2 days ago, like, our neighbor is not here, right? So, and it just kept me up. And literally the next day, this sister sends a voice message that went viral, and she's talking about her kids slept all night through all the bombings, and saying, I don't know how, like, Allah made them sleep. Like, she's like, and I remember, like, Allah is with them, right? And then she said even her 3-year-old came to her and said, Mom, I want to die. And she's like, why would you say that? She said, because I want to go up. It's like, where did he get that from? I don't even know where he got that from, subhanAllah. So I mean, they're another level, man, like, all together, even spiritually, like, they're a whole another level. And she was like, don't worry about us. We're fine. Like, we're good. Like, we're worried about you guys. Like, I was like, so, I mean, I guess the question I have is, are they more resilient? Like, we're a mess. It looks like we're the mess. They're okay. SubhanAllah. I mean, they're not in the sense that, this injustice, but like, from a spiritual point of view, it seems like mashallah, like, they're a wall, and we are the ones who are really a big mess. Is this true?
So, first of all, this is absolutely true. And one of the reasons why this is true is because there's no intercession. There's a direct fiber optic line for the dua of the oppressed to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like super highway, straight to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, answered, no questions asked. And so I was listening to a sheikh of mine who was talking about his teacher. His teacher would always never make dua in general, against all oppressors. And so he would ask him, like, why wouldn't you do that? Isn't, like, they're causing problems? He's like, no. I'll make dua against specific oppressors by name. But I won't make dua against all oppressors because I can't guarantee that I didn't oppress anyone. And so therefore, I can't make dua against myself.
SubhanAllah.
And so, you can agree with that, not agree, but like, you see how much that person is in tune with the fact that he's trying to do what's right and understand that he's human and he makes mistakes. And so imagine the dua of the people that are oppressed, not just for 1 year or because of one situation, but non-stop, generations and generations. The dua of a child who has done nothing wrong, imagine. And so this is where I realize I'm a mess. And this is when I realize, when I'm speaking to my cousins on the phone in Gaza and they're under bombardment, and my aunts and my uncles, wallahi ladhi la ilaha illahu, they tell me, you could think I wish I was exaggerating. They tell me, we're okay. We're more worried about you because we know that you're worried about us because you're not here.
SubhanAllah.
And the problem is, we know what's happening on the ground. Probably better than they even do because they don't have access to internet, electricity. Yeah. And like, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. So absolutely, we're a mess. And absolutely, they are at least have a level of dignity and patience that's unparalleled because their dua is answered 100% by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala every single time they make dua.
Well, on that note, maybe we should end with a dua, in however way or format, or anyone that wants to take a lead on it.
Do you have any last words?
It's the least we can do. Just renew our intentions. I'm talking to myself first and foremost, and make dua, and we can end on that note, unless anyone has a final remark they'd like to.
Go ahead, Mom. You have anything
I mean, I think the message to all of us here in the U.S. is we got to tighten our belts. We got to do our part. And it may seem trivial and small to have a coffee chat with your coworker or your neighbor. But when enough people do that, that's where that's where you get power. And also,
We have the numbers, by the way, and we have the numbers.
we just have to do the work.
Yeah.
And even if it seems like it's not going to reach the outcome we intend, the timeline is Allah's timeline. It's not our timeline. And we just have to know that justice always prevails. If history teaches us anything, if our deen teaches us anything, it's justice and truth prevails, and that is promised. That's what's been keeping me going, really throughout my life, but even more so this past couple of weeks. So.
Well, we heard it, man. We everybody gets to do their part, inshallah. So let's, inshallah, do a small dua. يا الله الذي لا إله إلا أنت يا أحد يا فرد يا صمد يا من لم يتخذ صاحبة ولا ولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد ربنا إلهنا مولانا ترى مكاننا تسمع كلامنا. You are the acceptor of dua. You are the acceptor of repentance. You are the guide. We ask you, Allah, to send your salutations and salawat on Prophet Muhammad صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم صل على محمد وعلى آل محمد كما صليت على إبراهيم وعلى آل إبراهيم في العالمين إنك حميد مجيد ملء السماوات والأرض. We ask you, Allah, to protect our brothers and sisters in Gaza and Palestine. يا الله احفظهم يا الحفيظ احفظهم. اللهم يا ربي أفرغ عليهم صبرا وثبت أقدامهم وانصرهم على القوم الكافرين. اللهم سدد رميهم. اللهم يا ربي انصرهم على أعدائهم. اللهم وحد صفهم. اللهم اجعلهم كالبنيان المرصوص. اللهم يا ربي تجاوز عن سيئاتهم واغفر لهم وارحمهم. اللهم يا ربي تقبل شهداءهم. اللهم تقبل شهداءهم في الفردوس الأعلى. اللهم يا ربي فك أسراهم. اللهم داوي جرحاهم. اللهم يا ربي أهدهم واهد بهم وسخر لهم عبادك الصالحين. سخر لهم أموالك يا رحمن يا رحيم يا من له خزائن السماوات والأرض. اللهم سخر لهم يا رحمن يا رحيم. اللهم يا ربي ألهمنا لمساعدتهم ومعاونتهم يا رحمن يا رحيم. We ask Allah to inspire us, to show us what is the right thing to do for them, Ya Allah. We ask Allah to make this a means to become close to you, to go back to your deen, to go back to the Quran. Ya Allah, we ask you that makes us come together, bring all our hearts together. Ya Allah, we ask you to show the falsehood as falsehood, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. This propaganda, Ya Allah, we ask you to show it and make them spend their monies and it comes back to haunt them, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. We ask Allah to give us all a good ending and to make the last was wa Arabi la ilaha illallah, and to accept from us this is small discussion, Ya Rahman, Ya Rahim. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin wa sallallahu ala sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.